they were like, oh my God, this is awesome, we're gonna draw like this. So a lot of the old silent era anime is very much like that, where it's very situational comedies. The first colored anime came out in 1956, and that was Legend of the White Serpent, also called Panda versus Serpent, depending on where you're from.
Was there a panda in it?
Yes, there was.
Oh, well, okay.
There's a panda that goes out and goes and kills a dragon. It's white. So it's like, yeah. But it's basically, that story is based on Chinese mythology. And so that being the first Toei cartoon that was colored, that was like, whoa, we can do color now. And as soon as that happened, it's like they came out with all these different little cartoons, like Alibaba and 40 Thieves, and they came out with, Tezuka started doing not just kid cartoons, but adult cartoons like Belladonna of Sadness, and came out with 1,000 Arabian Nights. So it just kind of expanded from there. But at this point, it's like anime started trickling into the U.S., starting with stuff. Do you remember Angel? Kanamako Runa? And then Saint Seiya.
Ah, yes, Saint Seiya.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's like, it also got introduced like Italy and all over the world.
It's very popular in South America, in Latin America. There are a lot of shows that have been known down there for many, many years that are not really popular up here. And I think that's because they didn't really have an animation industry down there, so it was probably very cheap for them to import Japanese cartoons and instead of making their own. But I know one thing that this is definitely not my topic of expertise, but in hearing other people discuss the initial stages of the industry, I know one of the things that came into play was the idea that people wanted to tell stories in Japan, but they didn't really have the budgets that would allow them to make live action movies and TV shows of the kind of stories that they wanted to tell. So if you can't do it live action, guess what? You can draw pictures and your animation can do anything. Special effects, no problem. And that was definitely a big gateway. And something's interesting is the perception of it, of things that are animated. It's changed somewhat over here, but in Western cultures, it's been much more this idea of, anything that's animated is for children. And obviously that's not a perception in Japan because of the style of storytelling through images. I mean, the written language is really pictures. It's pictographs. So it's a whole different mentality in how everybody over there reads manga. Housewives read manga, businessmen read manga. So everybody's used to looking at stories that are told through pictures. So I'm just fascinated by the whole difference of the outlook. I was sitting somewhere a couple months ago. I was like on a set or something, just sitting there. You know how most of the time you're on a set, you're just sitting around waiting, not doing anything. So everybody's sitting around reading books. And I was reading some manga, and a guy near me looked over and asked me if it was a cartoon book. I didn't even know what a cartoon book is. Yeah, it's manga. Now leave me alone.
I remember when I was kind of raised on military bases after I left Japan. And military bases, we'd have a lot of friends that lived in Japan, and a lot of my family lived in Japan. And so what would happen is that back in the early 80s, there would be, my family would send me boxes of anime, and I would understand what was being said because, it's like stuff like, Anpanman or something like that. And
which is like a little dessert, a little bread sweet thing.
Breadhead man, yes. Dessert breadhead man. He's a superhero. and Doraemon and things like that. And every once in a while, I'd get like Macros and I'd get their Robotech. And what I would do is, me and a whole bunch of the other Japanese kids on these bases, we'd sit there and we'd watch them all together, and we'd know what would be said. And then people would come over to our houses and we'd translate them. And it got to a point where we would type up using these stupid little typewriters that were gigantic. And I would type up for each episode a basic synopsis in my childlike writing. He did this. He doing that. He like her, but she not like him. Yeah, really bad English. And then we would pass it on to, we'd put that into each VHS tape. We'd pass it on to one of our other friends at another military base, and they would make a copy, and it would then get sent out to all these different military bases. But yeah, we had a whole system. It's really bad. But yeah, it was piracy in the early days, but it was that piracy that brought about more anime.
Well, it was a different amount of distribution, one videotape.
Yeah, that
giving to a friend rather than
and it would
putting
be
it on
a
the internet for
montage.
millions of people to download.
Yeah, it was a montage VHS tape. I also had laser discs that I would translate. I had a laser disc of What's Michael? It's a show about cats, which is so cute. Anyway, I also I had Dororo and Gigging in a Bell and Rose of Versailles and a whole bunch of other old shows on Laserdiscs, and I'd sit there and write on these little post-it notes, like basic synopsis of what this episode was. And we'd have one episode on a Laserdisc.
Yeah, and crazy American fans that wanted to get Laserdiscs from Japan were paying like $80 or $100 for a Laserdisc that had one 30-minute episode on it in a language they couldn't understand. There were not subtitles on it. They were just getting these Laserdiscs to watch them, kind of making up their own stories unless they had some friend who could write a synopsis for them.
And I also sent out Betamaxes. A little itty bitty. I had one. I still have a symbol insert. Early show, Kimetsu no Akachan Secret on beta at home, and they're kind of my little trophies. But yeah, we'd send them out to different bases, and then from there they went over. And it's been going on for a long time, long before I started. People were doing it for a while, and I know that it's like at colleges. I used to go out to Stevenson High School, and they had up in Illinois. We moved over to the naval base over near Stevenson High School in Illinois, and they used to say, it's like, oh, can you and your brother come over to our high school anime club? And we'd sit there and we'd watch the anime, and we'd pause the video every 5 minutes and be like, does everybody know what's happening? Because this is what's happening. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going to play it now, okay? Okay. and then all of a sudden it's like you'd see a hand in the back raising their hand, and then we'd pause it again and be like, okay, what's wrong? What don't you get? Yeah, my English was really bad.
Well, it's improved. So that's
Oh yeah. I remember we had fights over. We had like a 20th generation VHS tape of Nausicaa, the Valley.
Yes, that was a huge battle. Does anybody remember the Nausicaa battle?
Yeah.
I thought it was underwear.
Yeah, because the copies that were being distributed amongst American fans, the VHS tapes were so bad in their like 10th or 12th or 15th generation videotapes, people could not tell if they were wearing pants or not. Yeah.
That was I didn't get it, and then it's like being Japanese. I was like, so you see her butt? And all the guys are like.
I was so disappointed to find out she actually